Good afternoon, good afternoon, and good afternoon, and welcome to another one of my new series called Dragons Dungeon Talk, where we discuss various aspects of the wonderful game that is Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And I know we have been doing a mini series on some homebrew feat tweaks for Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and we will go ahead and continue that in our next Dragons Dungeon Talk. But for this one, we're going to start up a new sub-series that where I am going to be discussing and introducing to you various homebrew monster rules and statistics for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And I am going to be sharing with you some of the homebrew monsters that we have encountered in our gaming groups and that I have designed or that some of my group of gaming friends have designed. And for this particular Dragon's Dungeon talk, I'm going to be talking about the scary, potent critter that is the Skeletal Mage. Now, where does the Skeletal Mage come from? And I don't really quite know. So I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since the late 1970s and early 1980s. And there have, to my recollection, been numerous iterations of skeletons as mages throughout Dungeons and Dragons, the most famous of which is the Lich. But skeletal mages of varying powers have been popularized throughout the game, both as homebrew and in video games. And I also believe as various forms of monsters represented in modules and various supplements throughout the game. Our most recent encounter in my game had occurred in an Icewind Dale homebrew campaign by a good friend of mine, Dungeon Master Graham. And this Icewind Dale homebrew campaign is inspired by the Icewind Dale game that was designed back in the early 2000s and is presently being run and managed by Beamdog. You can check it out on Steam. Go ahead and if you're interested, check out the Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition over on Steam. It's a very fun game to play. It is set up in a second edition Dungeons and Dragons engine. So if you like old school gaming like I do, it is a lot of fun. But what has been even more fun is my friend Dungeon Master Graham's rendering of Icewind Dale in second edition version Icewind Dale in a 5e type game that we have been playing and streaming online that I'm sure some of you guys have seen, and you might even recognize the artwork here on this slide by Lady Blue Wolf. Uh, for a time when we encountered one of these skeletal mages that I've been talking about through this video. Now, a skeletal mage in the representation that I'm looking at is a relatively low challenge rating monster. So we're going to be introducing for you a skeletal mage that can be used for your games for levels 4 to 7 players roughly. I'm introducing introducing a skeletal mage to you that is a challenge rating 3 monster for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And this is a potent bad guy. I wouldn't really call him a boss, but Definitely a potent force on the battlefield, particularly for levels 4 and 5 characters to deal with. Not necessarily the toughest monster, but definitely bringing some heat to the battlefield that puts low to mid-level parties at serious risk. So I've written up a little description for our homebrew Skeletal Mage, and it goes thus. Emerging from haunted tombs and dark dungeons, the Skeletal Mage is a dangerous menace that wields potent arcane magics. Whether a remnant of an ancient civilization summoned by a potent curse, or animated by a powerful necromancer, the Skeletal Mage is a cunning terror, drawn to the shadows and fueled by a hatred for all living things. So that gives us a nice little descriptor for our skeletal mage, which we will present to you today. Again, this is not in any official capacity for Dungeons and Dragons. This is just something that my friends and I have cooked up, and something that we think that you might enjoy as well. So we thought we'd put it up here for you guys to have fun with, or to tweak as you like. So here's the stat block. I've gone ahead and made a slide here for you, which you should be able to read easily. But if you want a more easy to use version of this homebrew skeletal mage, I've gone ahead and published it over on my blog at scribblersfantasticalworkshop.wordpress.com. And I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to my blog page so you guys can yoink this if you want to use it for your home games as well. So here's the 5e Skeletal Mage stat block. Again, a challenge rating 3 monster. I've tweaked it a little bit from the Skeletal Mage that we encountered in game. The one we encountered in game, oops, I forgot. Yeah, no, I got this right. The one we encountered in game was equipped with bracers of defense. This one is not. So the armor class is a little bit lower than the one we encountered in game. So armor class of 15, 39 hit points. So relatively defensible, relatively tough, although not too crazy hard to hit. Speed of 30 feet. Trained in Constitution and Charisma saving throws. The chassis, the spellcaster chassis that we're using for this skeletal mage is the sorcerer chassis, as opposed to the wizard chassis. So Constitution and Charisma saves are more related to the sorcerer chassis. So those are the saves we get as a skeletal mage, and I think this is about right for a low-level undead mage. Although I guess for certain applications, you might want to lean more toward an arcane caster, in which case you'd be looking at a different set of saving throws. The skills we're looking at is our Arcana and Intimidation. Because it is a skeleton, it does have a damage vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, which might open it up to some interesting tactics by your adventuring groups. It is immune to poison damage, and it is also immune to the exhausted and poisoned conditions. Our skeletal mage has a dark vision of 60 feet and a very poor passive perception of 9. It does speak the common tongue and is capable of speech. The main mode of combat that the Skeletal Mage relies on is spellcasting, and our Skeletal Mage is a 5th level caster and requires no spell components to cast spells and uses Charisma as its primary spellcasting ability with a save DC for its spells of 13 and a +5 to hit when it uses spells as attacks. For the spells, we chose Chill Touch, Light, and Shocking Grasp for the Skeletal Mage's cantrips. For level 1 spells, we picked up Absorb Elements, Magic Missile, and Mage Armor. And I've modified this slightly from the version that Dungeon Master Graham used. I gave it a 2nd level spell. Dungeon Master Graham's version did not have a 2nd level spell, and I thought I would be true to old school Icewind Dale and add the second level spell Acid Arrow. Not an extraordinarily potent spell in the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. You might just want to go ahead and use Magic Missile for your critter instead, but it does provide some nice flavor and possibly some nice situational effectiveness for our Skeletal Mage here. Getting on to level 3 spells, we get into where the Skeletal Mage has some amazing potency. And oh, I do see where I have a little typo here. The Skeletal Mage has 2 third level spell slots as opposed to 3 level 3 spell slots. So, but the spells we're giving the Skeletal Mage at level 3 are Lightning Bolt and Stinking Cloud. Just doing Lightning Bolt and Sneaking Cloud for this version. You might want to add Glyph of Warding if you want to add some traps set by your Skeletal Mage, which can be a lot of fun. So maybe put a little asterisk there in your third level spells known for your Skeletal Mage and add in a Glyph of Warding, which can be tricksy and fun as well. So 2 level 3 spell slots. And I've written up some actions for the Skeletal Mage for both Chill Touch and Shocking Grasp, just to give you some examples of some basic attack actions that the Skeletal Mage uses. Although typically the Skeletal Mage will be unloading its powerful spells first, like Lightning Bolt and Stinking Cloud, to ensure it gets these off before it is waxed by any group of adventurers. And I've written a little description here at the bottom. We did a little flavor text before, but I like the description as well. Skeletal mages are gaunt, clothed in tatters, and move with the sound of a scraping menace. Their eyes are illuminated by a malign green glow. So here is our Skeletal Mage for you guys. I hope you find it to be a fun monster to use in your games. I have had a lot of enjoyment with the Skeletal Mage. It's a scary critter. I've been on the other side of the table, so to speak, as a player fighting against this thing. I haven't yet used it in any of my games, but I thought I would present it to you all as a kind of homebrew critter of the week, if you will, although we might be doing more than one homebrew critter a week. We've got quite a few fun homebrew critters, both that I've cooked up and that my good friend Dungeon Master Graham has cooked up as well. So please go ahead and check him out. Check him out on Twitch. Also check out Lady Blue Wolf, who has various fun and entertaining arts that you might also enjoy. I'll be adding her link to the comments after this live stream as well over on YouTube and over on my blog at scribblersfantasticalworkshop.wordpress.com. So thank you for joining me. I know a pretty quick little uh, video blog here, but just a fun little introduction here for our homebrew Dungeons and Dragons version of the 5th edition Skeletal Mage. So thank you for joining me, and I will be chatting with you guys soon. And let's get out of here.